Mine is probably I am the oldest boy with
I am the oldest boy. Let's talk about Barbie now that we've spoken about Oppenheimer. मैं नहीं सुनूंगी और बस Barbie की. No more anti-Greta conversations here.
Whenever I'm putting on Amazon Prime, it's like Rocky or Rani, randomly quarter scene. You have to have a director to look at him in all the way Atlee does in this.
He's a very curious case study. He gives the worst performances in Bengali films.
Hilarious.
And then he is very good in Hindi, and then I fight with people.
All right, so starting with June, we're going to go to School of Lies. And Rahul, you have something to say.
Yeah, School of Lies is one of my favorite Hindi shows of the year. Avinash Arun, as we know, great director. He did co-direct Patal Lok, so it's technically his second long-form show. He also had 3 of us this year, which hopefully we will discuss in year. School of Lies, very atmospheric series set in a boarding school in the hills. A child goes missing. Basically, the investigation, as we often tend to see in such shows, reveals deeper secrets about the school, the culture, a lot of sort of skeletons in the closet. On the surface, it's fairly familiar, the premise, but I think it's an extremely well-made, well-acted series. A bunch of young teenage actors or early 20-somethings, which a lot of us, we haven't seen most of them before.
Yeah.
And a lot of familiar actors. I think great casting. It did, for some reason, get underwhelming reviews. But it's one of the shows that has really stayed with me to the end of the year, because there are a lot of themes that we've seen in films and in shows, and especially in the darker sort of, especially darker filmmakers tend to deal with these themes on the nose. But I think School of Lies tends to do it in a way that we haven't really much of an idea about until the last few episodes. They use timelines very smartly, I think, even though it's a done to death device. The editing is great, it's one of the better written shows of the year as well. It keeps us guessing towards the end. I will never forget the last few shots of the show. I wouldn't want to spoil it for those who watch it. It is on Hotstar, so it does make you rethink your perception of the show, and it's really disturbing because it has all the pet things you can imagine in a boarding school, in a boys' boarding school. So yeah, I highly recommend it.
I know, Ishita, you have School of Lies on your list as well, but I'm going to throw Scoop at you now, because in the interest of time, let's do one title and then the next title, because we still have a lot of ground to cover. We've just hit June. So Scoop pe aaja, you put Scoop on your list.
So Scoop is by Hansal Mehta. It's his second long-form show, but he didn't direct Scam, the new one though. So for those who don't know, it is about the journalist called Jagruti Pathak and how she was falsely imprisoned because of her ties with the underworld. It's not the best show I've watched, to be very honest, but I feel why I've put it is because I feel it's also one of the shows which depicts journalism very accurately, because it's the central character is of a journalist, and I feel like Hindi films tend to show them in the most annoying way possible. Run after a story and they just wear those jholas and those Fab India kurtas, and that's a very perceived idea of a journalist. Hansal Mehta really shows the transaction. It involves a negotiation it deals with, especially for a female journalist.
Yeah.
How she gets the first entry into a room because of her gender. But you know what?
We've had an entry into the room.
Wait, I'll just
he's here. Okay.
The dog is actually in the house. So, Ishita, we don't have time to have dog appearances. What are you doing? Come back.
He'll keep barking otherwise.
That concludes our discussion on Scoop. We will move on. Rahul, are you also leaving? What are you doing?
No, I'm just like figuring it out.
We've been disrupted by a four-legged friend. What? You left only in the middle of talking about Scoop?
I thought to let him just enter. Sorry, should I?
No, it's fine. We're done with Scoop. Hansal Mehta, I did not like the show. The next thing we've got is Succession. Enough and more has been said about Succession, but season 4 is some of the finest television that has ever been written, created, produced, and shown to us. We're very fortunate to have lived in the era of Succession to see these actors perform the way they did. What is your all-time favorite dialogue from Succession, from any season? Mine is when Kieran Culkin says in one episode, if a deal falls through in the forest and no one's around to hear it, is it an SEC violation or something. Anyway.
I think mine is I love you, but you're not serious people.
What's incredible about that dialogue is that Kendall already said that to Kieran Culkin like in a previous season or something. But when Brian Cox says it to all his children together, it hits you different. But you've heard that dialogue before on the very same show.
Mine is probably I am the oldest boy with
I am the oldest boy! And Sarah Snook's reaction to Jeremy Strong saying that, like her face, like just being, I cannot believe you just
she can't
said
control
that.
the laughter coming out of her.
But she's incredulous. She's also surprised and she's laughing. Masterclass in staging, performance, edit. The next thing we've got in June, I want to give a quick mention to Fire in the Mountains. And again, it was at Sundance 2021, so 2 years ago, but it just randomly dropped on Sony Live this year. It is another directorial debut by Ajit Pal Singh, who is the director who made Tabbar. Tells the story of Chandra, who lives in the hills and runs a small bed and breakfast with her deadbeat husband, and how she has to fight not just against her husband's expectations of her, but also the village chief and her own family to just be able to run a successful business and look after her children. Fire in the Mountains streaming on Sony Live, definitely one of my picks of the year because it released on Sony Live this year. What else do we have in June? Ishita, you've got Bear season 2.
It's very difficult to match up a good season with a better season 2, and I think Bear just does it. It's just incredible what they do this time. The premise is the same. He's trying to Jeremy Allen White's character is trying to take the reins from his dead brother's restaurant. He's trying to set it up on by himself, and the fact that just he is so broken. I mean, for those who are on the Instagram, they would know him walking, sauntering about every day. But in the show, he's just so broken, and he's convinced that he doesn't deserve better. The way the episodes have been framed, there's one episode, and it's very chaotic, obviously, much like the first season. It's very, very chaotic. A lot of things are happening. And there's just one episode which comes in the middle, which is so calming, which has 2 incredible cameos. I will not spoil it for whoever will watch it later. And it just, gives such a center to the show. Everything just falls into place. As you said, like Succession, we are very lucky to be living at a time when Succession came out. I feel we are also very lucky to be living at a time when Bear has come, and the fact that we are watching it and talking about it at the same time.
Another pick you have in June is Lust Stories, the whole series, or are you picking one from the anthology?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention it. I won't talk about it in detail, but I feel we should mention the Konkonas and Sharma's short from it. Yeah. It's called Mira. In my books, it's one of the better fiction this year. A very upper class woman, which is Tilottama Shom, one day walks in and sees that her maid is having sex on her bed. And then she tries, sneaking and catching her every day. And it's a little game that these 2 women play. And poor man, who the maid was basically having sex with, which is the husband, is absolutely unaware till the last moment. I feel she does, Konkona obviously made a masterful debut with Death in the Gunj. But in this, with the paucity of time, it is such a masterclass in storytelling, in staging, commentary on class, gender, consent, and performances. There is a confrontation scene between Amrita Subhash and Tilottama Shom. It's just fantastic. The themes it touches upon, the brutality and the cruelty it goes on. Nothing is beyond these 2 women. That they just throw anything at each other to emerge as a better person. It's just fascinating. So yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone has watched it, but it's really one of my most favorite works.
So 2023 was pretty good year, man. Now that I'm looking back at all these titles that we are discussing across Hollywood, Bollywood, streaming, theatrical, short, long, good year for stories. We've got some great stuff. Siddhant, you want to start us off with July? Start us off with July, dude. Come on.
Oppenheimer. I think it's fucking terrifying and hilarious and just such a insane paradox of a movie about a paradox of a person. It's a 3-hour biopic that feels like a climax throughout. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just a stunning achievement. It takes what is a really, really enormous and dense book and captures almost all of it in its
Have you
screenplay.
read American Prometheus?
I have, yeah. It takes entire backstories and chapters and like condenses them down to singular lines that tell you all you need to know about some of these characters. It's one of the best feats of adaptation that I've seen this year, and also just one of the most terrifying cinematic spectacles I've seen in a long time.
I had to watch it 2 times because the first time I was just too much taken in with the visual of it, and I had to watch it a second time to get into the actual character study of it. Cillian Murphy, incredible. Nolan, I can't fault the film for anything. If anything, I want to fault the film for is, I don't know, maybe it was a little too long, but then again, that's just being stupid about it. No, Oppenheimer was perfect, wonderful, and I got to meet everybody and I got to talk to everyone for like 5 minutes each. So the
and
highlight
they like what
of
you were wearing too.
They liked what I was wearing.
Yeah.
Emily Blunt. I walk into the room and Emily Blunt, the Devil Wears Prada, Emily Blunt says, I like what you're wearing. It's the highlight of my life. Forget year. It's the highlight of my life. Next, let's talk about Barbie now that we've spoken about Oppenheimer. Barbie, Siddhant has not liked. Rahul put it on his list and then he took it off his list. I loved Barbie. I would watch it 20 times even though I haven't watched it again. I think Greta Gerwig is again a very important storyteller of our times. The most obvious form of tackling with patriarchy amongst all the films that we're talking about this year, this is probably the most underlined, and she has the monologue and she has the dialogue and the conversations, but it's just a very, I love the whimsy of it all. I love the colors. I love the approach towards dealing with patriarchy by saying we're going to make this as feminine, quote unquote, as possible. And Ishita, thoughts on Barbie?
I too very much loved it. I watched it twice on the same day. It's just
twice on the same day?
Yeah. And it's also a filmmaker having a lot of fun taking something which is very entrenched into pop culture and giving her own spin on it. I mean, I didn't find it too deep or anything, and I have no absolute qualms about it. I feel she was having fun and she earned a lot of money for it. Yeah. And we saw Ryan Gosling sing. So no one lost here.
Yeah, and she gave us a new profession, beach.
Beach. Yes.
Siddhant, why are you so not for Barbie?
For me, it seems to present a vision of matriarchy and feminism almost in stasis. Whereas in the film, even though, masculinity and patriarchy are presented as these, potentially toxic or destructive forces, in the film's presentation, it ends up being transformative. It ends up being almost horseshoe theorying itself around and looping back to progressive in a way. And I think it's a film that just kind of, rather than continuing to do what it does through action and presentation, which I think it does quite commendably for about its first half, then just switches modes in a sort of stale way by having America Ferrera give monologues that feel sort of disconnected from what a lot of the other Barbies are like experiencing. Like, she talks a lot about motherhood, but it's a film that establishes that Barbieism, so to speak, the Barbies themselves, are separate from this idea of motherhood. But that's just like one of several issues I have with it. I think it has a lot of grand ideas that it then flattens towards the end.
मैं नहीं सुनूंगी और बस Barbie की. No more anti-Greta conversations here.
Listen, I think Greta Gerwig is an incredible filmmaker. I love her first 2 films.
Yes.
So Dunki now? Can we talk about Dunki?
No. We are still in July. We are segueing into a big Bollywood blockbuster of the year. Rahul, take us through Rocky or Rani ki Prem Kahani. It's on our lists, all of our lists.
I think Ishita is the perfect person to take us through Rocky or Rani because she's watched it, I think, 10 times. Whenever I'm putting on Amazon Prime, it's like Rocky or Rani, randomly quarter scene, half scene, like 3/4 scene. She's watching random scenes through the year. So I think she really spreads the joy.
Our resident Bengali film critic.
I think it's a great entertainer. It's the most wholesome entertainer I have watched this year in the theatre. It gave us a very bulked up man who is asking to be treated well because he's fragile. It has a woman basically explaining to him that whatever happened between both of them was very consensual. I feel like this was Karan Johar looking back at his legacy and saying, I will make things right now.
It is that.
It's about 2 Rocky and Rani. One is Punjabi, one is Bengali. I mean, the girl obviously is Bengali. She's a journalist, so she only wears saris. And the fact that they fall in love. I like that the chemistry between both of them was insane. It was like you could almost touch it. It was that palpable. Generally Karan Johar has a way of treating. I don't know, for some reason I always find the chemistry between Shah Rukh and Kajol a little sibling-like, which is Alia and Ranveer have tremendous sexual energy. Like you feel they will literally eat each other up. And I feel for a film which was trying to be subversive, this really worked. Karan Johar basically, as I said, that he was trying to make his legacy better. And the fact that he was taking everything which he generally used to celebrate, which is, these big sets, a big family, a patriarch, a matriarch, and telling them that they need to learn. That they need to keep up with the time. Yeah, I think it's also one of the first film I feel where he's basically asking the question, because all his films are about, it's all about loving your family. I think Rocky Rani was the only film which basically asks back that what if they are not worth loving?
Like, is it really about loving your family? Is it really about that? And then the Sanjay Leela Bhansali recreation, the second of the year after Polite Society. Rahul, you've got Kohra in July.
Yeah, Kohra, created by Sudeep Sharma, the man behind Patal Lok as well. My best Hindi show of the year. I think a lot of people have the same opinion. And it's been a good year for long-form storytelling here. It's a very simple premise. Sort of bridegroom is found dead days before his wedding. Bunch of cops are put on the case. Of course, this family, it's Punjab. As was the case with School of Lies, a lot of secrets come tumbling out of. It's a nice little investigation of society. The police case goes parallel with what we are finding out about the murder case. Great performances. I think Suvinder Vicky, we saw him in Milestone. He's fantastic here as this very jaded veteran police officer whose ideologies and whose perceptions of the region he lives in is challenged with every new thing he finds out. Barun Sobti is very underrated. I think he's used very well by the director Randeep Jha. He used him in his previous film Halahal. I would highly recommend that also. I think Barun Sobti, given that he's such a popular TV face, it's very difficult to have him stand out in a role that makes him anonymous at the same time. He's a great as a assistant police officer here. I think it's a great show. I can't get into the details because there's a lot of subtext. The last episode was more or less fairly criticized in terms of what it was trying to say and how it went about it. But I don't agree with a lot of that because I felt like the writing did a great job of subverting a lot of themes we tend to associate with queer characters in certain aspects of storytelling, and it makes a very, very, I wouldn't call it dark, but it makes a very nuanced statement about how we tend to look at Punjab and what is actually happening within it. So yeah, for me, definitely best Hindi show of the year.
But Siddhant, I'm going to throw it back to you now. We're going to go through August, and you've got one title here that I'm entirely unfamiliar with.
Yeah, this is Dominic Sangma's second film, Rapture or Rim Dogitanga. It's a Garo language movie, and Sangma's first movie, Ma Amma, unfortunately didn't end up getting any kind of wide release because of the pandemic. But this one, I think, is, no pun intended, enrapturing film about the politics of fear. It's set in a village very much like the one he grew up in, and he kind of draws on his own childhood memories. And it's about these what seems like a rapture-like event because someone from the village goes missing, and it's about how the village starts to treat these outsiders who are kind of coming in and out, the way fear manifests both internally and externally. But at the same time, it's a very spiritual film about a child because it's told through the eyes of a child who sort of stand in for the younger Sangma himself, how he starts to view and reckon with really heavy ideas of life and death. It has one of the most mesmerizing depictions of that reckoning that I've ever seen.
Dominic Sangma's Rapture, and I think it might have played at Mami as well. I'm not quite sure.
It played at Mami, it played at Locarno. It is getting a small theatrical release in the Garo Hills in January. Not sure yet of plans after that, but I believe it's also like a French release planned later in the year.
Rahul, what else do we have now? In August, you picked Goldfish.
Yeah, Goldfish, Pushan Kriplani's second film, one of my favorite. It's technically not a Hindi film, it's English language mostly. Dipti Naval and Kalki Koechlin playing a mother-daughter duo.
Kekla.
Okay, then Kalki. It has Dipti Naval playing mother and daughter. It's one of the few films this year, including three of us, which deals with dementia. Though for me, the film wasn't entirely about the condition itself, it was a mother daughter story. It's based in Britain. Kalki plays like a half English, half Indian character. Dipti delivers a fantastic performance. She has this vacant look on her face throughout the film. Very difficult to watch, especially if you have older parents right now, because you don't know, where they are exactly on the spectrum. Both of them really like handled us through the tension between them, their past, their history. The lot of resentment reminded me of Lost Daughter in a very weird way, because she hasn't been the best mother. Kalki's character is always regrets that, and there's so much to deal with, but then there's also the disease at hand. And very simple film, great filmmaking. Isn't too gimmicky. Pushpan's first film, Threshold, had Neena Gupta and Rajit Kapoor. It's playing on Hotstar. It's again one of the films I caught at Mami, like absolutely unexpected. A very moving film. I was absolutely left in tears after watching that film. It's just about a couple. It's a chamber drama, middle-aged couple going through separation. So this feels like a very perfect companion piece to that. It's in my list of the best sort of Hindi films right up there this year.
Wow. Lean August for all of us, because we don't really have any more titles to discuss in August. Ishita also only just picked Goldfish, and I had picked The Wheel of Time season 2, but I feel like that is more of a very Sucharita personal thing, because I watched that with my husband, who read the books as a child, so it became like an activity for us to do, to watch the series together. But I immensely enjoyed Rosamund Pike doing Rosamund Pike. She plays this authoritative figure so well, and leading a group of young magic casters. Just delightful to watch. Siddhant.
And didn't you get to visit the set or something as well?
I did. I went to the Czech Republic, and the set is just outside Prague a little bit. So I went and I got to see everyone. And Priyanka Bose, who is also in Agra, plays a lead character in The Wheel of Time season 2. She plays Alana Sadai. She gets to have her Indian accent. The decorations in her room are all Indian. She gets to wear those clothes. There's a small subplot that is set in her own village, which we don't quite know where it is, but it's very Indian. The set design and everything. So it's always lovely to watch. I'm so happy for her that she's getting to do these international things and being seen for the wonderful, wonderful performer that she is. So moving on to now September तो skip ही कर दिया मैंने. इतनी बड़ी फिल्म सितंबर में. जवान तो हम सबकी लिस्ट पर है. शाहरुख खान अगर नहीं होता जवान में, तो क्या जवान जैसी पॉपुलर होती शाहरुख खान. And also I'm so sorry, we're going to come back to Vijay Sethupathi, because what a guy. What a guy! How he does these like tongue-in-cheek dialogue deliveries. No, and I'm so excited for Merry Christmas. Ek to he's paired opposite Katrina Kaif, which is going to be amazing, because both of them just have this dry like dialogue sense of humor when given the space to do this. Katrina Kaif also is a very funny person. But Jawan, would it have been as enjoyable an experience, Siddhant, if it weren't for Shah Rukh Khan, you think?
Definitely not. For me, it's Pathan squared, because it's even messier, it's even more frantic and hectic.
More raita.
But Shah Rukh Khan is more, and there are more Shah Rukh Khans in it.
He's so hot, yeah. He's so hot with his long hair and his ripped body and his white hair and his young face and his old face. And like he gets to do the Kamal Hassan, like he gets to do the, I'm going to appear as 10 different people in one film. And he does, and like the teaser for the film, when he does the dance in the metro train, like it had us hooked by the fucking collar. Like, what is this? What is he doing? I wish the film had leaned more into that. The weird space that we were promised in the teaser. The film was a little more, mainstream and very, very deeply, very, very like unsubtle film, very deeply underlined everything that it was trying to say. But again, it had something to say. Shah Rukh Khan has something to say, and he's saying it. He's inserting himself in his films over and over again. Directors who are working with him are making sure that people know front and center that this is a Shah Rukh Khan film more than anything else, and this is whatever we're saying with this film is Shah Rukh Khan saying it.
And it's crazy how in 2 films this year, I'm not going to mention the other one, they need to put him in old man makeup to make him look how old he actually is in real life.
I didn't enjoy the prosthetics in Dunki as much as I enjoyed them in Jawan, I have to say.
You brought it up, not me.
जाएंगे हम, आ रहे हैं. We are coming close. We are done 2 out of the 3 Shah Rukh Khan films of the year. Any thoughts on Jawan, guys? Because it's just one of the biggest films of the year, so we can discuss it in a little bit more detail.
My most enjoyable theatrical experience this year, I think we watched it like at 6:30 a.m., which is insane for Hindi cinema, especially now after the pandemic. You never imagined such a thing could happen. Best pre-interval moment of the year with like older Vikram Rathod with like the cigar smoking. It's such a theatrical experience. Not enough credit is given to Atlee for, and I realized this while watching more of Shah Rukh Khan through the year.
Yeah.
And I see how he's directed, and I see how much of himself he's putting into this film. But you have to have a director to look at him in awe the way Atlee does in this film. And a lot of directors have fallen prey to this superstar syndrome, where they always sort of, like Shah Rukh's worked with some of the best directors in the last 10 years. They've not been able to make their best films with him. Atlee, for some reason, his reverence, he turns into a weapon in this film. The way he treats both of these Shah Rukh Khans. And I think it's so important. You needed the swag. You needed the way the camera looked at him, the way it did, the way it moved, the music, everything. Like, it just worked. And if you want to make a bad film, you have to make it this good.
Atlee appears himself in one of the songs dancing with Shah Rukh Khan again, reminding you that you're watching Shah Rukh Khan. This is the movie star, this is the director, this is the film. What this film is saying is what Shah Rukh Khan is probably saying. And two films, Pathaan and Jawan, both of them start with Shah Rukh Khan really beaten down. Like, he's almost dead in both the opening shots in both the films, like with blood coming out of his nose and ears and people hitting him, and then he immediately comes back. You know, repeating the same thing twice over. You can't defeat me. The next thing you have in September, Rahul, is The Great Indian Family.
Ishita can take this.
Ishita, take it.
Thanks. Great Indian Family. It's a YRF production. Probably it just flew under the radar. No one knew about it. It's by Vijay Krishnacharya, who basically made spectacle films like Dhoom before this. But it's a very small film. It's also a very simple film. It's almost 90s simple. There is Vicky Kaushal, who is a Hindu, and his family is in the business of, they're priests or something, and they're very, overtly, everything is very overt. They only wear like saffron and something. And then there is another side of the mohalla where basically Muslims stay. So it's all painted, swathed in green. One day, Vicky Kaushal realizes that he was born as Muslim, and then his family they have a tiff, and then he goes over there and he says, teach me how to be a Muslim. It's farcical. It's very brave because, the film basically was talking about the redundancy of religion at a time when it is impossible to have these conversations.
Yeah.
And it's also made by Yash Raj, which is very surprising. And also it was pretty sad that they didn't market it at all. Like, it just came and, but it's a very enjoyable film. And again, a very good Vicky Kaushal performance.
Which is unfortunate. Two Vicky Kaushal films didn't even get a decent release in America. I didn't even watch Sam Bahadur because it was just not playing in Washington DC anywhere. The next one, Ishita, you've got is Jaane Jaan in September.
Jaane Jaan is by Sujoy Ghosh. It's an adaptation of the famous book Suspect X, which is considered to be like the finest thriller ever. Was it the same film that was the Drishyam stories? The Devotion of Suspect X. Yeah, but I don't think the Drishyam people ever acknowledged it. I think it's more of conjecture, but this was an official adaptation of sorts. I'm not a big Sujoy Ghosh fan, but I feel Jaane Jaan is a compelling example of mediocre writing being elevated by terrific performance.
Kareena Kapoor, she's just going through a Kareena Kapoor essence right now.
My favorite arc this 2023 is Kareena Kapoor's presence in Roundtable, and where she's sitting like a very good girl, and she's like, this is what I always wanted, and I love it because she was not this person. We all know that.
And Kapoor, even on Coffee with Karan, like, she's just like, you guys, you do your thing. No, I'm over it. I'm so above all of this.
But also great Jaideep Ahlawat performance and great Vijay Verma performance. Kareena is just radiant, as Siddhant had used. There is a karaoke scene. You feel like the light was shining just to fall on her face. It's just, she's that good. But yeah, we can go.
In September, I was at the Toronto Film Festival as a Siddhant. So I'm going to go through some of the things that I watched there. Can't go into detail because none of these are released. Don't want to go into spoiler territory. Nikhil Nagesh Bhatt's Kill, that has some fresh new faces, premiered. It's an ultra-violent film. But then it treats violence as not something to celebrate, but violence as something that some people have resorted to. And then the end result of violence is not something that no one wins because of that violence. It's ultra violent. It's an actual genre film. It's a slasher. People are killing each other, and it's not for everyone. It's an incredible Raghav Joyal performance, who we know as a kind of like a comic character. He's a dancer. He's been on all these dance shows in India and seen in Kisi Ka Bhai Kisi Ki Jaan last year, which is just such a terrible film. No, it was this year only. Terrible fucking film. Don't even want to talk about it anymore. Here, he plays the antagonist, Funny, who is a guy who doesn't have a job, doesn't have any job prospects, and he goes on to trains and loots people. On one of his looting moments, things go out of hand, and he is faced with somebody who is just as who's going to fight back. So what happens on the train is the story of the film. Then there was Ava DuVernay's Origin. Siddhant, I'm going to let you talk about Origin because it's on your list as well. I think it might be close to a release right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it had a limited 1 week release in New York, but it played at TIFF in Venice, and I think it's getting a wider release in January, at least in the US. So when I first heard that Ava DuVernay was doing this film, I was a little concerned, I guess, because the book that it's based on by Isabel Wilkinson, Caste, The Origins of Our Discontent, is a dense journalistic piece of nonfiction. It's historical analysis, it's anecdotes, and it feels like something that should be unfilmable. But DuVernay makes it filmable in such an incredible way because she makes Wilkinson the lead character. Not going to get into too many of the details, but it becomes like this globe-spanning journey from the US to Germany to India to it becomes about looking into contemporary and historical oppression and atrocities to try and create this map, this framework of the interconnectedness of things. And so much of it becomes about the beauty of joy and the connectedness of loss, and something simple as the beauty of touch.
Yeah.
And I think it's an incredibly affecting film.
Origin, if you get to watch it, I don't know if it's going to be on a streaming platform in India. I don't know if it's going to get a theatrical release, but do please watch it. It flirts with being fictional and documentary because when she comes to India, there's a lot of Indian scholars who are just playing themselves in the film. There's students from universities. Dr. Suraj Yengde appears as himself, as someone who shows Eva around. And also, not Eva, sorry, the character around. Anand Patwardhan's The World is Family is probably his more personal work. Anand Patwardhan is a documentary filmmaker who has, time and again told stories that people have told him not to tell. The World is Family, also called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, he turns his camera inside his own house. So how his parents participated in India's freedom struggle, their relationship with the politicians of their times, their relationship with Gandhi, and their outlook, how it has changed towards, a free country, and did everything they fight for, was it worth it? If you get the chance to watch World is Family, I do not know release or any other information on it, but definitely one of the best things I've seen this year. I caught it at TIFF. Anything else you've got going on in September? Siddhant, you got Poor Things, yes.
Poor Things, because let me do the bubble. Where is it? Come on, man. There we go. Poor Things is everything I wanted Barbie to be. I think it's an incredibly transformative and in some ways liberating film. For those who haven't seen it, it stars Emma Stone in a very Frankenstein-like story by Yorgos Lanthimos. She plays this very childlike character, but she is an adult. But it effectively becomes this fantasy about living and exploring, emotionally and sexually without any bodily shame. And I think there's something incredibly freeing about the way that Emma Stone captures that element of the story. And it's a visually dazzling film as well. Lanthimos creates a kind of steampunk adjacent world, but it's very uniquely him as well.
Ishita, do you want to start us off with October?
One.
I always catch her by surprise. It's like she's not here. She's just listening. She's sitting back and she's listening. Hello, participate.
I was in your list. Second after what
Please take us through October.
October, I have three of us, which is Avinash Arun's very tranquil, quiet film. It's a film about three people and the woman is at the center.
That's November.
Shit, sorry.
Hi Ram.
I'm sorry guys, it's 11.
It's okay. Three of us, in any case, it's releasing to day after tomorrow.
Okay, fine. I'll start with 12th. In October, my favorite film was Vidhu Vinod Chopra's 12th Fail. Vidhu Vinod Chopra's feature film after a very long time. He has directed it based on a real life character, which I'll come to a bit later. But the film is generally about the many aspirants who try to crack the IPS. On paper, it's a very generic story. I think we have all heard and we have seen a lot of TVF reboots of it. I remember watching the trailer of it and I was like, this is a filmmaker who's making a film after a very long time and this looks dated. But I feel like when I was watching it, it just took me by surprise. It's on Manoj Kumar Sharma, who is an IPS officer, and the many hurdles he had to brave along the way. Comes from a very economically challenged background. And the fact that how he just weaponized honesty throughout the
Yeah.
day and read and cracked the exam. It has a very, very good Vikrant Masse performance. I think it's one of the best performances of this year for me. Like, I find Vikrant Masse's eyes very, strange, because you feel that he is hiding something and he can really like flip it in a moment. And I feel he uses that very well in 12th Fail, because he's like an underdog, and
Yeah.
everyone believes that he will not be able to do it. And he just like very doggedly keeps saying, no, I'll do it, I'll do it. He eventually does it, and it's a film which actually is so human, and it just made me cry a lot more than I would like to admit by the time this was
I thought that it was, melodrama notwithstanding, fresh to watch a movie that ends on a hopeful note, that ends with hope, that gives you a story of like you can do it, things can happen, and yet not giving that credit to the systems, telling you that the systems will pull you down. The way the society is laid out will try its the hardest, damnedest to pull you back and pull you down. I agree with you. One of the finest performances of the year, Vikrant Massey, is just spectacular. Rahul, what is your next pick in October? Let's see what you have. You have Mumbai Diaries season 2, huh?
Yeah, I think I'm in the minority here. I've
Batao?
been watching a lot of year-end lists, and I don't see this anywhere on the list. But I very much enjoyed it as much as the first one. I don't think enjoyed is the right word, but very engaged, because it's more or less like this franchise is very interesting because it could go wrong very badly. It's technically a disaster film, but like it's a long-form show. The first one was about the terrorist attacks in Bombay. The second one is about the floods in Bombay. I really like that they take this fictional hospital, which is not so fictional, as the centerpiece of the entire franchise. We are already very familiar with the characters. I think they do a great job of juggling multiple narratives, and we've seen this in action shows, in shows where there is a lot of action. There's a lot of things happening outside of your sort of setting, so to say. It's really difficult to juggle the density of a plot like that, and I think Konkana's track especially was particularly outstanding here, because her ex-husband, which we've heard of in season 1, actually comes back to haunt her here, played by Parambrata, who plays an absolutely Parambrata role in Hindi cinema. He just plays these shifty husbands or lovers so well somehow, only in Hindi cinema. I haven't watched any of his Bengali films, cannot comment, but I think he does a great job here of gaslighting her and just representing this toxic masculinity that all of us are so wary of, because we've seen people around us like that. The red flag was so it was so fascinating to see, because there's so much going on around. So for me, that track just stood out like a short film, like Konkana
Yeah.
short film.
इशिता की शक्ल देखो तुम परमव्रता का नाम लेते ही, मतलब she's
Yeah,
so
she is very
happy.
expressive about it.
She's so happy just to hear the name. Good. I'm glad.
He's a very curious case study. He gives the worst performances in Bengali films.
Hilarious.
And then he is very good in Hindi, and then I fight with people. And they're like, no,
Siddhant, let me ask you this. Why have you not put Killers of the Flower Moon in October? Didn't work for you?
Oh, I thought I have it on my list for like November for some reason.
Oh.
I should have put it in May because I saw it in May. I don't know. I just kind of forgot when it actually came out.
Fine, let's go to Killers of the Flower Moon. Batao.
It's massive. It's major.
Yeah,
I think for Scorsese to create something, this great, this late in his career it's an incredible achievement. And I think it is one of the most riveting and at the same time depressing films I've ever seen, because it makes some of the worst, most detestable human beings momentarily agreeable. And you can see why the things that are normalized become normalized, even when it comes to the worst that humanity is capable of. And I think this is a film that has some of the most incredible performances of the year across the board. Lily Gladstone is just unbelievable to watch, without giving anything away for people who haven't seen it yet. Like just an absolute gut punch of an ending.
Something that's clearly been on his mind for a long time, something that he's clearly been grappling with for a long time, not just as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, but as a white man in America. What is owed to whom and what was taken from whom, and how must we atone, and if not atone, how must we tell those stories for posterity. The climax of the film really ties it in together, ties it together very nicely. And a lot of people had issue with the long run time of the film. I wanted the film to be even longer because the story and the history is so vast, it's so deep and dense, and there's so much to atone for, there's so much to apologize for, and there's so much to be held responsible for, that the length, it could have just been 6 hours long and I would not have mind watching the film. Maybe just add a little interval.
And it's another incredible work of adaptation by Scorsese and Eric Roth, because the book is more of a whodunit. It's more of a mystery. Whereas in the movie, you know everything up front, and that's what makes it so just audacious.
Great. So that's Killers of the Flower Moon. We're firmly now in October, guys. This is going to end very, very soon. One film that I want to mention here is a very small indie called Tora's Husband. It is Rima Das's Assamese movie. And again, it deals with, it's set in the time of the height of Corona, where when people were getting sick and nobody really understood what was going on and, what does it mean to have Corona, and then how businesses were suffering. That space where people had to change their profession because of the pandemic and because of no help that came to them from the government to get over the financial losses they suffered. Rima Das tells stories again in the most unhurried fashion. She's in no rush to take you from one scene to the next. Now we've got anything else in October, you guys? No, we're done with October. Siddhant, no, sorry.
My stuff got
Green Border.
I thought I'd put this in September. I don't know. Anyway, Green Border. I very rarely, call a film good just because it happens to be like, important or politically agreeable. But this is one of the instances where those two things align in a very urgent way. Green Border is a Polish film by Agnieszka Holland, who has made a lot of films about the Holocaust before. But this one is a contemporary film about Middle Eastern migrants stuck on the border of Belarus and the EU, and just their horrendous treatment. And it's mostly in black and white. It's a sort of patchwork of different characters, whether it's the migrants themselves or one of the officers in charge of deporting them back and forth between these two borders. It takes the language of Holocaust movies and World War II movies and places it, in this contemporary context, in a way that I think a lot of us are trying to do verbally and on social media. Never again is happening now. And I think this is a great cinematic manifestation of that. And it's a film that is, like I said, urgent and angry. And it's not just mournful or sorrowful, but it's the kind of movie that can make you go mad with grief. It's really, really powerful. And if I had to pick the one best movie I've seen this year, it's probably Green Border. I believe its US release is early next year, but it opened in September in Poland to a lot of backlash, political backlash from all levels of government and a lot of protests because of the way it, made the Polish government and Polish border authorities look.
Yeah. Ishita, November mein aa jate hain. You've put Avinash Arun's Three of Us. This is his second work of the year after the series. Let's talk about Three of Us.
Three of Us is it's a very quiet film.
Yeah.
It's basically centers around three characters. One set is a married couple. The woman is losing her memory, so she wants to go back to where she had studied when she was very young.
Yeah.
Which is Shefali Shah, and there she meets the person who she had left behind, and that's Jaideep Alawar. It's basically, and the husband is very, very nice. The husband
Anand
is like,
Kirkere.
Yeah, and he's like, and he also has such a nice face. Like, this person is nice. He has one of those faces, and he's like, "Come, I'll take you." And Jaideep Alawar, basically they start talking, and Jaideep Alawar refers to the husband as sir because he doesn't know what to say.
Yeah.
And how they basically relive the moments which they had left behind. Like Jaideep is basically reliving them to keep it with him, and Shefali is doing it because she knows she'll forget. I think it's one of my most favorite scenes this year when there's on the Ferry wheel. And, it's only Jaideep and Shefali. And I think it's the first time Shefali basically says that, I'm forgetting things. And Jaideep is like, it's okay, I'll remember it for you. And it's just like, it's like such like a proposal scene. I think Jaideep said in an interview that he approached it like a proposal scene and I took it like one.
It's like past lives, isn't it? Where the female protagonist meets somebody from her past, but the husband doesn't become the villain. The husband is a very nice man who's like supporting her through this all and letting her have this experience and saying, go ahead, do it. I will be right here for you when you're ready to be done with it and then, come back to life as we know together. On my list as well, release in India in December. I want to add in November, Pokhar ke Dunu Paar movie, and I know Rahul, you have it on your list as well. Pokhar ke Dunu Paar has the like we were discussing about Dui, it's kind of like a companion piece. Pokhar is written and directed by Paar Saurabh, and it stars Abhinav Jha, who is also in Dui. He's the lead character there as well. This film is also set in Darbhanga. Another one, like our theme is going this year about patriarchy and about how women are expected to live and how about men are expected to live. A boy and a girl who elope, get married, but then have to come back to Darbhanga, and how this girl is just trying to get back in touch with her family and telling her family that she is not doing very well financially, but then her family is just not interested in having her back. At the same time, in the relationship, the boy is not realizing all the mistakes that he is making. You feel like the protagonist is the man. The film, a lot of it plays out through the point of view of the woman who is caught between a rock and a hard place, between her a man that she's supposed to love, who's her father, and the man that she's chosen to love, who's her husband, both of whom are not fully understanding what it is like to be her.
Definitely one of the more memorable Hindi films of the year. I just watched it like last month, and I was very happy to write about it also. It just like a lot of it reminded me of the second half of Sairat. They've come to terms with reality. The pandemic brings them back. There's no happily ever after. That's not how it goes. I mean, there's such organic problems between them. Nothing feels forced. You know, he is a bit of a useless guy. He likes whiling away his time. He's trying to get back in touch with his own past in his own sense of nostalgia, meeting with friends, drinking, doing nothing, just lying to her about finding a job, and she just wants him to pull his boots up. It almost like an anti-romance in a way, and it plays out, it unfolds in such an organic manner. I mean, your heart breaks by the end of the film. Even though he's not a very likable man at all, you still find yourself like really feeling bad for him at some point because he knows no better. And he almost throws it on her face, at least I'm not the toxic guy that so many other men are. And I'm not beating you up, that's enough. It brings to fore a lot of themes that are complicated to deal with, and I thought fantastic performances by both of them. I know he's a great actor, we saw him in doing, but she was very good in this as well. Like, she's playing the slightly more upper class, upper caste person here, and she's more educated here, so it's a very tricky role. I thought their chemistry was spot on, and I highly recommend it.
Tanaya Khan Jha plays the female protagonist. It's like this was in Dhui as well. Like they've seen what life can be and what they can achieve, if they follow their passion and if they follow their dream and if they work hard at it. But they just don't know how to get there because they've not been equipped with any ways to get to a point, and Darbhanga is not ready to support them to do what they want to do, and they've not been equipped to be able to develop a life outside the city. So we've got Pokhar ke dono paar. I would like to give a small mention to Napoleon because I enjoyed the Ridley Scottness of it all, the comedic lens with which he sees this big emperor. Like, you think you did something great? You think you belong in the history books as this great conqueror? You're an idiot. Your wife was the smarter individual in this relationship. She got the rawest deal imaginable possible. And if you had been a man who had, and Ridley Scott is saying this through the film, that if you were a man who had actually listened to his much smarter wife, you would have not died the lonely death that you did, that Napoleon Bonaparte did after he was exiled onto Earth. It was so funny. It is one of the funniest Joaquin Phoenix performances recently. It's very like, him doing Inherent Vice. A lot of the moments, his reactions are just they catch you by surprise. Napoleon did maybe or maybe wasn't like that, but Ridley Scott definitely thinks that he was an idiot. Siddhant, Napoleon?
My girlfriend clocked something in the trailer that I didn't realize until I was watching it, that, he's got kind of a Michael Scott vibe going on. I think, and it's a hilarious film. I think
That's so
Ridley
funny.
Scott turns his back on history for a very valid reason, because this is the modern dilemma of how we view strongman authoritarians, whether it's Trump or Putin or Modi or Xi Jinping. They are idiots. And it can be entertaining at times, but at the same time, there's a danger that's simultaneous to it. And it's a film that kind of presents those two things hand in hand.
I like that they showed him as somebody who was against the idea of a king and queen, to bring him to a point where he proclaims himself as the emperor, and then the famous painting of him crowning himself and then crowning his wife. Napoleon, please watch. Ridley Scott doesn't care of your opinion of his film. He's already making the next Gladiator movie. So he moves on from big films to big films without waiting for what anybody has to say. I also would like to give a mention here to another indie Marathi film called Sthal. I watched it around Mami time, but it premiered at Toronto at TIFF in September, and it won an award at TIFF. Again, patriarchal norms about women and arranged marriages in a small town in Maharashtra. Really, really lovely film. Then there's Against the Tide, which I know all of us are fans of. You recently published an interview with Sarvanik Kaur, Siddhant, Against the Tide, or what did you do? You did a Q&A, something you were involved with?
Yeah, so my interview and review were back at Sundance in January, but recently the film screened in New York and we did a Q&A. But yeah, I think it makes such a interesting triptych with All That Breathes and, funnily enough, Avatar: The Way of Water as films that
Sure. I hear you.
Kind of show us the connectedness of all things through the environment, the connectedness of life. But what I love about Against the Tide and all That Breathes as well is that they are part of this new wave of Indian documentaries that take a stylistic approach that is much closer to traditional drama and fiction. I think it's an incredibly mellifluous and just really absorbing film.
Like, for a long time in the movie, you can't really tell, are you watching fiction? Are you watching a documentary? Because the Sarvanik Kaur's control over the craft is also so good and so held so nicely and tightly. And then until you get lost in the film, sometimes the people on the screen start feeling like actors. Like, how can this be real? But it's very real. It's an actual documentary film. One of my favorites I've seen in recent times. Really, really good. So happy that I got to watch it. Wow, y'all, we've finally reached December.
My November film is still left. I'll be quick about it.
Anselm, I'm so sorry. I'm reading 4 sheets at the same time. I've missed everyone something or the other at some point. Go.
Anselm is Wim Wenders' second movie this year. He also had the Japanese sort of Ozu-inspired slice of life drama Perfect Days. But Anselm is completely different. It is a 90-minute 3D documentary about the painter and sculptor Anselm Kiefer, who was born in 1945, but a lot of his work is about keeping the memories and the horrors of the Holocaust alive and in living memory, and within the cultural consciousness. Again, it's a very never again kind of movie that sort of visualizes and embodies this idea of bringing the past into the present. It's been an exceptional year for 3D films. Between Avatar: The Way of Water made a lot of money this year, but also Anselm, films like A Woman Escapes, films like Labyrinth Sequences, which are more like experimental works. But this one in particular, it doesn't make shit fly at you like 3D used to, but it creates a sort of soulful pathway for you to like almost travel into the screen, and it places the art within this surrounding context that it's in, because a lot of Kiefer's art is not just about the art itself, but the location in which it's presented. And Wenders also uses 3D to kind of create thoughts and memories and sort of visualize the artistic process by, using different visual layers through 3D, sort of overlapping images that then become these like haunting memories almost. And it's a film that really hits hard.
That's your pick from November. Anselm. Rahul, do you want to start us off with December?
Yeah, hold on.
आधी नींद में राहुल की दाढ़ी उग गई है. During this conversation, his beard is grayed a little more.
Yeah, December. I'm going to start with. Let's start with Mast Mein Rehne Ka, which is actually one of the more. I mean, it was a surprising gem this year. I think a lot of none of us expected it. I love when the films that just like spring up upon you. I think Amazon Prime, all of us are tired by the time December comes around. We're like, reviews khatam kar do, ho jayega. Only 2 big films. There's Dunki left. But then this film comes out of nowhere and absolutely charms you. And Jackie Shroff, Neena Gupta, lovely Bombay film. It has 2 younger actors as well. There are 2 tracks, younger couple, older couple. Deals with loneliness in very different ways. Urban isolation, loneliness, old age, survival, bunch of themes. Reminded me of Tu Hai Mera Sunday, one of my favorite Bombay films. Vijay Maurya made this film. And he is definitely one of the more interesting voices in terms of this particular city. I don't think anyone gets the heartbeat of a city better than him. Sure, he wrote the dialogues of Gully Boy. He's known as this actor who shows up in a lot of films and elevates these scenes, but it's just so much heart, this film. And it's so lovely to see Jackie Shroff for a change not playing himself. He's playing an actual character. And it shows that all these old schoolers, the veterans who've been around since the 80s and 90s, they still have so much in them. There's so much talent in them. Like, I'm so glad Vidhu Vinod Chopra came back with 12 Fail, and you see Jackie Shroff, like Parinda, of course, they were together.
Yeah.
Jackie Shroff coming back with such an unassuming performance, such a heartbreaking performance as a widower trying to sort of spend his last days finding some sort of companionship. Yeah, lovely film. I can't recommend it enough. For me, it's also a great Christmas film as far as Indian films are concerned, because we look for a lot of rom-coms around this time of the year, and this is as good as it gets.
Speaking of Vijay Maurya and Bombay film, Ishita, let's come to Kho Gaye Hum Kahan, because that's also as Bombay film as it gets. And Vijay Maurya is in that film. He plays Adarsh Gaurav's father. And that's on your list.
Yeah, Kho Gaye Hum Kahan, I was very excited about it. Honestly, because it like, I'm so tired of films talking down on younger people.
Yeah.
And treating them like strange creatures, like they don't know what to do about it. I think Kho Gaye Hum Kahan, it's a directorial debut, and it's a film which has, thank you, which has its finger on the pulse. It knows the generation it's talking to, and it never looks down upon them. Obviously, about digital loneliness, the amount of time is spent on social media, the need to be seen, the need to see and to be seen while seeing. And it centers on three friends. Great performances. Ananya Pandey is very, very good.
She's very good.
I find her very interesting because I feel like she has a very modern face. She has very modern mannerisms, and I feel it's a waste for her to be doing these conventional roles. Like Gehraiya, she was very good, and
this is her zone.
Exactly, and I would really like to see more of her in this zone, because I feel we don't have actresses like that, who is very modern. It's a great film on the Gen Zs.
I mean, and there are 25-year-old in the film, so they could be younger millennial or older Gen Z. They're like in the middle of two generations, kind of stuck between like, where do they belong? Adarsh Gaurav is just so great to watch. He was also very, very good in Guns and Collabs. I wouldn't put Guns and Collabs on my favorite picks of the year, but his performance in Guns and Collabs was he's so good. He's such a good actor. Siddhant, what have you got to start off your December?
December, I've got Occupied City, which is a 4.5-hour documentary by Steve McQueen.
So as long as the conversation.
Pretty much, yeah. It was introduced to me sort of dismissively, like, oh, it's just a museum piece or whatever. But I think it's much more meaningful than that. The film is set in Amsterdam. And by that, I mean, it was filmed mostly during lockdown, and it is almost entirely composed of exterior establishing shots of the city. And it's based on the book written by McQueen's wife. She's a filmmaker. Her name is Bianca Stitka, I think. Her writing is narrated by an actress who is just throughout this 4.5 hours recalling things that happened in Nazi-occupied Amsterdam between 1940 and 1945. Historical recollections of acts of occupation, but also acts of Jewish and communist resistance. And all the while, McQueen is exploring the facade of the city, which is now his adopted home. It's another film that's very distinctly about bringing the past into the present and exploring the question of to what degree a place can have memory, despite or even because of its length. It's completely absorbing, and it has a fair amount of mischief to it as well through its editing and through its juxtaposition, because on one hand it's talking about Jewish people resisting Nazis, but it has these sort of zany images of anti-mask protesters, but it uses juxtaposition in much more serious ways as well, and it's hard to look away for all 4.5 hours.
A couple of films this year set in 1940s that talk about the Holocaust or
Zone of Interest as well,
Oppenheimer, the World War, all that set in that time. The next one that I want to talk about also kind of like that is not really set in the time, but covers this time during its screenplay is Maestro by Bradley Cooper, has co-written it, has directed it, and stars in it in what is definitely going to be an award-winning performance. He plays Leonard Bernstein, whose work I was I knew very little about, but now I know more about after having watched the film. I think it's a fabulous, fabulous performance. Carey Mulligan, though, is the star of the film. She plays, it's like the Josephine to the Napoleon, the wife to the big emperor who he comes home to. Enjoyed it very much. Definitely in my top movies of the year. Rahul, you watched Maestro also, no? You liked Maestro, right?
Yeah, I quite like Maestro, and I agree with you. Carey Mulligan is the star of that film. I mean, Bradley Cooper, great filmmaker, such an ambitious sort of second effort in a way. But with him as an actor, you can often tell the effort showing, even though he's a brilliant actor. He's really throwing himself at the screen. With performers like Carey Mulligan, it's less so, and I appreciate performances like that. But having said that, very satisfying film to watch. I wish I could watch it on the like.
I watched it on the big screen. I watched it because it got
I would have loved to.
Yeah.
Same.
The next one that's on your list and mine as well, and Ishita's as well, is Devashish Makhija's Joram. I've spoken so much about this film. I've recommended it to so many people. I've appeared on podcasts and everything. And at one point, people are like, "It's ho gaya, enough. Stop talking about Joram." But I will mention Joram here because it is one of the finest films of the year. Mohammad Zishan Ayub and Manoj Bajpayee together on screen, even though they don't really have much screen time together. It's a cat and mouse. One of them is always chasing the other. Talk to me about Joram, Rahul.
I think it's Makhija's best film so far.
Really?
And he's known to make really nihilistic films. But this one had method to the madness. There was a reason for everything. I think Manoj Bajpayee, he plays a tribal character in this film who's on the run from Bombay back to his hometown after his wife is found murdered. And he, of course, Zishan Ayub plays the policeman from Bombay chasing him. I feel like the best part about this film is you don't really know where Manoj Bajpayee's character is heading or why he's running or who he's running from. And I love the way the flashbacks are weaved in to tell a certain story. And it just goes with our perspective, our reading of the film reveals itself. Because towards the end, you keep thinking that here's this character on the run, but he's going to turn the tables.
Yeah.
The hunter is going to become the hunted. Because we are conditioned to think of stories like that. But till the end, he remains the hunted. And that is the reality of the India we are in today. And he is the marginalized character, and he remains so till the end.
Till the last shot, last frame.
Yeah. I mean, he begs, and that's not easy to do. As if you're focusing on a character throughout, it's just a very textured film, very very well written film. So yeah.
And like Killers of the Flower Moon, it's a filmmaker who's clearly been thinking about this topic for a very long time and is wondering whether he wants to use his craft to apologize or to atone or to account for just the sheer luck of us being born in the families that we are born into and others who are not, and how we've taken what's not ours, generational wealth that we have, that we've gotten from our parents who didn't ever even belong to us. Siddhant, Godzilla.
Yes, I'm as surprised as you are because I didn't really have any expectations going into this. Hadn't watched any trailers, was pretty much watching it for work. It ended up scratching that very specific Top Gun Maverick itch.
Yeah.
It is such a pure, classic blockbuster experience. It's set even before the original Godzilla. You can think of it as a prequel, but it's kind of its own thing. It's set at the tail end of World War II, and it deals with a central character. Another one. Deals with a central character who is figuring out how to live again, or if he has any reason to live. On top of that, it's also a film that makes Godzilla truly terrifying, and it's a film that has a lot of destruction in it that is not pleasant to watch. It's one of those really deeply scary films that just gets into your bones. But at the same time, it has these soaring action scenes. It has, twists and turns that you will see coming miles and miles and miles away. But when they happen, they are so fist bumping. And, something as simple as a romantic reunion elicited just wild applause from my audience, because it's one of those things that takes familiar ideas and images and stories and makes them feel new and fresh. And yeah, if you like good blockbuster movies, if you like, just classic action movies, monster movies, just if you like melodramatic sentiment, this is one to watch.
Who would have thought that there would be a Godzilla in our year-end list? This pretty much concludes everything that we had on this list, you guys. From January till December, we watched a lot of stuff. And this has been a good year. Looking back at this list and looking at everything that we've discussed, it's emerged that patriarchy was a theme that a lot of filmmakers spoke about. Their own complicitness in, whether it is Rocky or Rani or Killers of the Flower Moon or Joram, their own complicit, how they've been involved and what their responsibility as filmmakers has been a theme that's emerged a lot. We've had so many new new directors, young directors in their 30s making their debuts as storytellers. And of course, these are all very limited. Like, we by no means are covering the entire gamut of every film ever released everywhere. We don't know what is, a lot of the South Indian cinema, just we don't understand. We don't get to watch a lot of it. European cinema, we don't get to watch a lot of it. So between the four of us, this is largely Bollywood and mainstream Hollywood that we are covering here at this point, and some things that we've picked up at film festivals. So do please forgive us if there are films that you've liked and watched that we've not included in this list. And by all means, leave your own list in the comments below this and tell us what are your favorite things that you watched this year that we couldn't discuss amongst the four of us. Before we wrap this up, I want to quickly ask Siddhant, Dunki dude, what happened? You really liked Dunki, huh?
I did, and I didn't look at anyone else's reviews until after I published mine, so I was just as surprised as well. Do you guys want to go first? Because
I thought it was very basic. I thought it didn't really quite. I mean, but no, because we're making a best of 2023 list.
Sure, but I'm
going
curious.
Into it in detail. I just couldn't sit with the film. I thought it was just plastic.
Okay, Rahul, Ishita?
Yeah, it was very dated. I feel it was like all the Hirani jokes that he could not include in his previous films, he put it in there.
Okay.
Quickly, the 2 minutes you have, go.
Quickly, yeah. I'll do it in less than 2 minutes. Not only did I think it was hilarious, but I also thought the wild, out of nowhere tonal swings really worked because, and this, could just be a personal thing, but, as someone who has been in this visa limbo for about going on 15 years now, it felt like a very accurate and lived in reflection of what a lot of my daily life is like, where one moment I could be, celebrating something, and then the next moment it hits you that, oh, your entire self-worth is dependent on some white stranger with a stamp who to whom you're no more than a case file. And I think that sort of oscillation is something the movie captured really well on this journey. And I have my issues with it as well, but at the same time I thought it was delightful and very true to life.
I mean, I'm only just pulling your leg. If you like Dunki, you like Dunki. It's not something that I'm actually mad at you about. There you go.
I think he makes it sound good. So
yeah. Rahul just took my words. Siddhant makes it sound a lot smarter than I feel.
Isn't that what film criticism is all about, you guys? Looking at the movie through your own lived experience, lens, morality, whatever you bring to your own life. Siddhant, where can people find you, read your work?
My work is kind of spread out all over the place. You could follow me on Twitter at Siddhant Adlakha, which is where I post most of it. But it's at IGN, Mashable, Variety, Truthdig, Joy Sauce. I'll probably write for your personal blog at some point if you let me. So yeah, everywhere.
Please do. I'm going to link to your Twitter profile and Instagram. Instagram, but you're not very active. Or I'll link to your Twitter profile in the video below, in the description below. Rahul, everybody knows who you are, where you write, but please एक बार बता दे जाने से पहले.
Not really. Film Companion, I write my Hindi film reviews and shows reviews for Film Companion. I write a lot of English stuff for OTT Play. My Twitter handle is Real Reptile. Sorry for that and thank you.
I'm going to interrupt really quick. He's being a bit too humble. I was at a party in New York a few weeks ago. He knows this story. And some stranger I've never met found out I was a film critic. And her first question was, do you know Rahul Desai? Can you say hi to me? Can you say hi to him for me?
The number of people I met in Toronto who wanted me to say hi to Rahul was too damn high. He has fans all over the world and he's just humble about it.
Yeah, nobody says hi to me here. They all there. Everyone wants to say hi to me. They have to do the Dunki and come here. Like, who knows?
Ishita, where can people find your work?
My work, I write Hindi reviews mostly for OTT Play. Write a couple of profiles and essays for Hindu and long form pieces. I wrote one for IDA. I write for New Line magazine. My Twitter handle is Madam Sangupta, and you can also find me on Instagram.
I will link to everybody's Twitter handles and Instagram wherever they're active in the description box. My name is Sucharita. 2023 has been a wild year, you guys. We got to watch so many films. We got to do so many interviews. I've started living between two countries. I've done my first ever international film festival this year. This channel crossed 100,000 subscribers. It's been just an unbelievable, wild ups and downs here. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being with me on this journey, if I may use that term. Here. Rahul and Ishita, I miss you guys tremendously and I want to come back to Bombay and I want to see you soon. And Siddhant, I'll see you at Sundance in just a few weeks. All right, you guys. Bye.
Bye bye.
This was a lot of fun.
Yay.